Greetings fellow Gravewalkers, and welcome back to another video. About a year ago, before moving, I started a series called Tribe Regional Changes, where I only got around to doing 2 out of the 5 regions that can have changes. Minas Morgul obviously not being a part of it, since there's no fortress. These videos were non-commentary with no voiceover and just me running around the region while swapping through overlords, of which I have 2 videos about already, one which was the original and a second that was meant to replace it due to minor mistakes. The original's back, with the remake now more about the design philosophy of the tribes, but honestly, if you want a higher quality remake of any of my other videos, be my guest and request it. On topic, we're here to summarize and more in-depthly is not a word, go over the effects that tribes have on their region, because this idea definitely deserved a more comprehensive look, since I found some really cool stuff you wouldn't notice by just walking by. So, let's get into it. We're going to be using Nirnen for this showcase, since most players are going to be the most familiar with Nirnen. Let's start with the Warmonger tribe, as they're the ones with what I thought would be the least interesting stuff. A Warmonger region has clear skies with a bright sun during the day, and a clear night with bright moon. The biggest characteristic of the Warmonger tribe is the giant axe and sword-like spikes on the tops of towers and the Heidir, along with large banners. The monument of this tribe is a large orc in full Warmonger armor with an axe in his left hand holding the head of a man high, as if he'd just cleaved it from a Gondorian. A broken Gondorian sword lays between his feet, reminiscent of Narsil, the sword that belonged to King Elendil and was broken in the last battle against Sauron. With his father Elendil dead, Isildur used it to cut the one ring from Sauron's finger.
Took up his father's sword.
And later was reforged into Andril and used by Aragorn in the Battle of Pelennor Fields and the Battle of the Black Gate. The dagger Talion uses, which was his son Dirheil's sword that was broken at the Black Gate, also bears striking resemblance to the broken Narsil. I find this very interesting. Do the Warmonger orcs know about Isildur and the legend of Narsil? Or maybe they're referencing the Gravewalker's blade? Or perhaps it's just a broken sword, and I'm reading too much into it. 3 more swords can be found around the statue's rocky base. One of Gondorian design lies directly under the hand holding the axe, a second is stabbed into the back of the rock just next to the first, and lastly a large blade is stabbed into the rock in plain view. Though this blade looks more like those of the Nazgul than the elves, Gondor, or Rohan, making me equally wondrous about its significance. Perhaps it was just a design choice on the part of the orcs, or maybe it was put here either on request of the wraiths, or maybe as a small message for other orcs saying that they're stronger than the Nazgul and should rise against them. Or, given the presence of a blade bearing the look of Narsil, it makes one wonder if the Nazgul form of Isildur has anything to do with it. We'll definitely never know, and I'm certainly looking too far into it, but hey, that's the fun of theorizing. The last detail of the monument is a large shield at the base that is either Uruk-hai design or elf design. With everything we've looked at already, I can't shake the feeling it's designed like the shields Elrond's elves used in the final battle of the last alliance of men and elves, the same battle where Isildur defeated Sauron. I'll leave you all to decide what you think, but personally, I feel the Warmonger tribe either knows more than they let on, or Isildur was chums with the Warmongers and hid pieces of his past in their statue. Or maybe a mix of things, but there's no denying that the Warmongers definitely have something to hide. Around the Warmonger fortress, you'll find orcs beating war drums as warriors swing their weapons to the beat, training for battle. You'll also find boards with post-it notes that will sometimes have intel on them like a worm. And as is the usual, you'll find tables around with food on them, as even the war machine of Mordor must eat. The Warmonger tribe drape their towers in chainmail and bear the emblem of a double-sided axe, a warning to all that it requires little more than the order of a war chief, or worse, an overlord, for an army of orcs who love nothing but the thrill of combat to be against you. The Warmonger tribe give the region the feel of an army ready for war, as you would imagine. The Marauder tribe immediately has a whole different vibe than the Warmongers. Their architecture is still grand to the scale of the Warmongers, but its message and what's conveyed to those who look upon it is far different. Where Warmongers tell all around that they are ready and waiting for battle, the Warmongers display the wealth and riches they've looted and robbed from those they've fought. The Warmongers fight for the love and thrill of combat, whereas the Marauders fight for riches, wealth, and glory. These are orcs who adorn themselves in gold and silver, wearing regal purple paint and even going by titles like the Regal, the Legend, and the Legendary. These are orcs who go to war to steal riches, then retire as an overlord in a fortress made of marble and doused in gold. The towers of these fortresses bear solid gold crests, there to simply flaunt their wealth. They are by far the richest of the orc tribes. The days and nights in a Marauder region are clear and perfect for a morning or evening of pillaging, and who knows, maybe the first Marauders were warmongers who lost their love of the fight and found a greed for all that glitters. The monument of the Marauders is elaborately and cleanly carved from stone, showing great care and time put into their design. The back and sides bear the emblem of the Marauders, and the front crest is similar to the ones on the towers with many weapons. Atop is a Marauder orc, perhaps the first, or maybe just a hero. Below him is a pile of loot, including helmets and swords that appear to be Rohirrim designs. The orc has a foot on a crate of gold and silver coins, the coins themselves spilling out and around him. His left hand holds an orc axe, and his left a Gondorian sword, of which we know Marauders will use on occasion as an even bigger flex. This is especially noteworthy with the title of Lithlad. These orcs will almost always spawn as Marauders and will roll the dice on being a warrior or savage. His class determines whether he'll carry one or two Gondorian blades, of which he's the only orc who is guaranteed to spawn with Gondorian weapons, as even the Manhunter and Ranger Killer aren't always going to have them. And the title of Lithlad also says where this orc is from. Lithlad, the desert of Mordor east of Mount Doom. And in the Desolation of Mordor DLC, where you play as Baranor, you learn that the Marauders control Lithlad, not the outlaws like one would assume. All of this paints the Marauders as being way more powerful and influential in Mordor than one would assume. Then again, they do have to get these riches from somewhere. Around Marauder forts and regions, you'll find cages, carts, and chests laden with gold and silver in both bars and coins. Extra armor and shields around as well. The towers and heightier of a Marauder region are adorned in golden spikes that appear to be solid gold, and the large marble fortress is almost impossible to miss at any distance, especially the crest-like loop at the top forged of solid gold. The Feral tribe has a style like no other. These orcs wish to live like the beasts of Mordor, taming even the most ferocious Graugs and Drakes, putting them to work as war horses and demolition. I'd bet that some of the most powerful Feral overlords had their fort constructed by Graugs, using them to haul stone and supplies. The tops of towers are profiled by large bones, likely the ribs of unlucky Graugs given the size, or maybe even large drakes or small dragons. The skulls on the corners are certainly those of drakes. Like the warmongers and marauders, the skies are clear and nights are perfect for a hunt. Chains hang down from the main spire to the front door of the throne room. Hanging from these chains are the skulls of goats or sheep, and above the overlord's chamber is a skull that must have come from a dragon, and above the balcony, just below the tallest point, is another even larger dragon skull. The pinnacle of the fortress features a large Mumakil skull, the war elephants used by the Easterlings, and the sheer faces of the fortress are covered in what look like burned teeth, making me believe these belong to the two dragon skulls. Both the front gate and middle gate also feature smaller Mumakil skulls and have smaller teeth lining them, suggesting they're from the smaller dragon. The Monument of the Ferals is a large stack of stones with many skulls ranging from what appear to be human to Garagor to likely Warg, and the skeleton of a drake encases them inside. Atop is what you could almost see as a Mumakil at a glance, but is actually a large drake or small dragon skull with its ribs placed like tusks. Many of the bones are strapped to the stone pillar with chains that wrap around. Circling the base is swords that appear Gondorian and spears that may be Rohirrim. This statue is very interesting and makes me wonder why they put ribs to look like tusks on the drake/dragon skull. With a feral overlord, Caragor bait will be plentiful and drake bait will be scattered throughout the region. Lore-wise, I can also see the ferals as the most nature-friendly orcs in stark contrast to the industrial and polluting machine tribe. These two very well could be bitter enemies, and I wish we could have seen philosophical battles play a bigger part in orc infighting, such as the feral and machine, the outlaw and dark, and the mystic and slaughter. The different tribes butting heads over each other's beliefs would certainly be an entertaining idea. Giving a look at the rest of the region's towers reveals that many skulls are used as decorative pieces and are far too large to be a drake. Perhaps these dragon skulls are fake, carved from stone, but with how bone-like it looks, I'm inclined to believe the ferals have simply acquired dragon skulls, perhaps dug up from the War of Wrath, or maybe they've managed to kill dragons. This does seem unlikely, however. Smaug was not a big dragon. He was tiny compared to dragons in the War of Wrath, like Glaurung, and to obvious levels in Calagon the Black, the dragon bigger than mountains. Smaug is the average for Middle-earth in the era of Shadow of War, and I highly doubt, even with how strong some orcs are, that they could have defeated Smaug-level dragons in this number. One could go the route of, since the games make their own non-canon choices, the pharaohs killing weaker dragons is a possibility, especially if fighting them with Growls and Drakes, and that's the one I'd agree with most. However, the two largest skulls seem like a stretch. They look much bigger than Smaug, and you can see the largest one halfway across the region. Even with Graugs, Drakes, and the strongest of pharaohs, I'd be very surprised if they could have defeated it themselves. Perhaps with the Nazgul's help they could, but I don't really see the Nazgul assisting in killing dragons. The only one that might is Helm Hammerhand, but even then, one Nazgul might not be enough. All around, their architecture is modest compared to the Marauders, and while the message is sent like the Warmongers, it's not against man or orc, but the beasts of Mordor. Upon loading into a region controlled by a machine overlord, you'll notice how dark it is, the sun blocked out by thick black clouds of smog. Looking out from the balcony of the fortress, black smoke billows from chimneys. Dotted around the fort are pulleys operated by crane arms bearing the emblem of the Machine Tribe. The gates are built from red brick and welded steel. Around the region, and especially inside the fortress, workers and warriors man large furnaces making weapons and armor for Mordor's war machine. They also appear to be making the bricks that make up a large part of the machine architecture, and even captains will join in on the work. Around the fort, unfortunate orcs are made into slaves and forced to work, shedding some light on how the industrial nature of the Machine Tribe works. The greatest machine orcs oversee the grunt labor being done by the slaves, explaining how they've managed to become so industrial. The main building of the fortress is constructed much of brick and metal. Banners hang, though are dirty and dingy from the smoke. The main three spires of the fort act as large chimneys. Inside, they likely have great furnaces for smelting large amounts of ore. Large tubes or pipes jut out from the sides, either part of the chimneys or transporting material for smelting. The monument of the Machine Tribe is a testament to their industrial nature, and has a brick base featuring a machine orc holding his chain. The statue appears made from gold, bronze, or copper, though gold is more the Marauders thing, so I lean towards bronze or copper. The statue is incredibly meticulous. The skill of high-ranking machine orcs is certainly not to be underestimated. A region controlled by the Machine Tribe is dark, dim, dingy, and depressing. The sun rarely bleeds through the polluted sky, the air will smell of smoke, and debris will be inhaled with every breath. The lifetime of the slave orcs is likely not long in these conditions, especially as overworked as they appear from their gaunt and pale frame. Though it's worth noting that machine orcs don't seem to affect lith lag. I don't know if this is a bug or intentional, but it's certainly neat to see the large fort not covered in smoke. The Mystic Tribe brings a different type of style to their architecture. The tops of towers are framed with large bones and skulls, of which I cannot figure out what they belong to. The top ones could be a relation of wargs or caragors. There is enough resemblance for me to think that. But the bottom ones? I got nothing. The long lower jaw is, quite frankly, horrifying, and its face is indescribable. These, however, are definitely real bones, and there is a lot of them. The entire main spire is covered in them, and of great size. The pinnacle is some giant humanoid skull, with 3 rows of teeth, and the 2 framing pieces are the massive bottom jaws of the horrifying skulls. Their monument is just as grim, having multiple massive humanoids embracing each other with a huge pile of more bones below. Around the region are totems with orcs conjuring dark magic. Put simply, a mystic region holds many dark and grim mysteries that I don't believe we can have answers to, and that unfortunately means I don't have a lot to talk about them for. A Terror region is painted with an orange sunset, which gives off an unsettling vibe on the bloody and, well, terrifying designs of these sadistic orcs. Taking inspiration from the tower's fortress in arid Glamhoth, blood, gore, and remains are littered throughout the fort. Some towers smeared with red, and cages hang from the main spire and gates, their former human inhabitants mummified within. Many pikes and spikes have dead men on them, and it's clear that any human who enters the fort won't leave the same. Dead Graugs also hang from many places, like the spire and gates, their chests sliced open in many spots, suggesting these horrid orcs cut them and left them to die. The Terror tribe by far is the most outwardly evil and horrific. Their monument isn't much better, being crudely welded together with steel, forming a frame with the mummified remains of a man chained to a rock slab inside, drained of blood. Another unfortunate sight is guillotines primed and ready to execute slave orcs who have likely become so weak that they're no longer worth keeping around. A region controlled by the Terror tribe is incredibly hostile, and those who can't fight back are liable to be their next victim. The Dark tribe's designs most resemble those of the Dark Lord themselves. The main spire of the Dark Fortress looks quite a bit like Barad-dûr. It's evident that the Dark tribe is the most loyal to Sauron, and we'll get to more on that momentarily. Giant glaives hold banners much like the machines had the cranes. The Dark Gates feature a shield-like crest that's simple but interesting. The monument of this tribe brings us back to Sauron, as it's quite literally a statue of Sauron. There's not much to say about it besides that, though. Around the region we find chemistry stations that, when shot, cause natural balefire. This is the only way of getting balefire besides poisoning an orc then lighting them ablaze. The region's skies are overcast and hazy. A thick fog covers much of the region, likely due to the dark magic these orcs are using. All around, the Dark Tribe gets second place on designs for me, even if there's not a lot to talk about. The Marauders take number 1. The Slaughter Tribe has a sky very reminiscent of the Terror Tribe. A bright orange sunset paints the region, and it would look beautiful if it weren't for the orcs that reside here. Flayed skin is just about everywhere, draped along with chainmail down the main spire, and the heads and hands of Graugs are used as tower decor. 2 massive cleavers frame the throne room door. Makes sense given the Slaughter Cleavers are this tribe's special weapon. You can learn more about those and more in my Understanding Orc Traits video in the iCard now. The spire, pinnacle, and gates have a large amount of skin tied together to look like a terrifying mask. A crook! Their monument is, well, just take a look. What more can you really expect from the Slaughter tribe? Meat and gore are plentiful in the fort and outposts, and around the map are large grinders that, if you toss an orc into, will actually trigger a fear of brutality and make grunts run away, which is pretty cool. The last tribe is the Outlaw tribe. A region controlled by outlaws is covered in an orange sandy fog. I've never been quite sure why, but I'll assume it's just because they're outlaws, and sand and outlaws go together like marauders and gold. The biggest part of the outlaw designs is it's all made from cobbled together rusted metal. The spire, the gates, tower tops, all of it is rusty metal poorly stitched together. Their monument is, you guessed it, made of rusted metal, which kinda just looks like it's been thrown together. An outlaw orc stands atop with an incredibly unique looking sword. Below him are 2 chained up fake humans. Due to being in the same rusty color, I'm compelled to believe these aren't actual bodies, but at this point, who knows? Around the region and in the fort you can find stages that I'll assume are for rallying troops, but honestly look more like they're for Mordor's Got Talent. And sadly, that's about all there is to the Outlaws. They're shockingly boring compared to some of the other stuff we dug up on the other tribes. And that brings us to the end of this video. I put around 5 or 6 hours into this script and wrote it all while getting the screenshots used in this video. And I think I found some interesting stuff, like with the Warmongers, and this also somewhat works as another take on the Fortress Designs videos. So if you did enjoy this video, don't forget to hit the like button as it tells me you like the video, and if you like what I do, don't forget to subscribe for more. With that, I will see you all next time!